All right, let's use what we learned when we did examples A and B in the first video to simplify these expressions on C and D. So one thing that we remembered, and it's an important thing to make a note of, is that since I to the fourth equals 1, we should try to factor out as many I to the fourths as we can, because it's going to make life so easy. So we're going to use our multiplication rules and exponents here, and we're going to say that I to the 20th is the same as I to the fourth how many times? Well, it's I to the fourth times I to the fourth. Well, that would be I to the eighth times I to the fourth. That would be I to the 12th. That would be I to the 16th. And that would be I to the 20th. Now after today, I hope that you don't expand all that the way I did just now, and I hope that you would just rewrite this as I to the fourth to the fifth. Because if you notice here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 I to the fourths. And I know that this might be something you haven't seen in a little bit of time, but I to the fourth to the fifth is a multiplication rule with your exponents, where if you have a power to a power, you multiply those. So I to the 20th is I to the fourth to the fifth. And we know that I to the fourth equals 1. So that's really the same as 1 to the fifth, which is really just 1. So I to the 20th equals 1. We're going to do some practice with problems like that in class on Wednesday, and you're going to have some like that on your homework tonight. And now for D. D is saying to simplify this expression, which is a complex number that's being squared. So anytime I'm squaring something that looks like a factor, I'm going to want to expand it first. So 2 minus xi squared is the same as 2 minus xi times 2 minus xi. And in order to do this, I have to FOIL. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times negative xi is going to be negative 2xi. Negative xi times 2 is another negative 2xi. Negative xi times negative xi, that's going to be a positive x squared I squared. So I see x squared, which means I have a quadratic. It's going to be a really odd-looking quadratic, but I do have one. Now I have to simplify as much as I can and combine like terms. So there's one of my like terms. There's another of my like terms. And I can also simplify this. So first, let's deal with this negative 2xi plus negative 2xi. So we have 4 minus, I've got negative 2xi's, and then I've got another negative 2xi's. So I'm going to have to rewrite that as negative 4xi's plus x squared, and I squared, remember, that's our identity that comes from the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1, right? Because if I is the square root of negative 1, then what we're dealing with here is the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1. That's what this is. And we saw that you can simplify that to the square root of negative 1 squared, which is just negative 1. So I squared is a kind of nice one. So that's just going to turn this x squared into a negative x squared. So let me rewrite this how we normally see our quadratics. Negative x squared minus 4xi plus 4. And that is an ugly quadratic, but it is a quadratic nonetheless. So hopefully you guys already watched part 1. This is part 2, and you guys should be good for your homework for tonight. So be ready to practice some of this on Wednesday. Have a good day, guys.